Captain Adrian Winter, New York City, New York. 6 weeks later. Looking up at the sky, Adrian shielded her eyes from the glare of the sun as not a cloud was in sight. It was a beautiful day for the memorial service as thousands had come to Liberty Island to remember those lost 6 weeks ago. Isn't it supposed to rain at memorial services? Damn you, Hollywood, for your cliches. Her sister loved the rain, which was why she was not bothered by the overcast as she and her fiancé came to see the statue. It was her dream to see the monument. Adrian said she would bring her here a few years ago, but a new overseas crisis changed her plans. So, another year passed and another broken promise. How many promises did I break? I should have been a better sister. The memorial service was held so the country could mourn together, with the president and hundreds of foreign dignitaries in attendance. Adrian had buried her sister. Her body was released to the families 2 weeks after the attack, but the body was too severely damaged for an open casket. I hope you didn't have to suffer too long. Of course, she had, and Adrian knew it. She was murdered, shot multiple times, and slowly bled out, alone on the grass. You deserved so much more. More time to find your place in the world. Time to get married and have a family. I should have been there with you. I could have done something. Adrian felt survivor's guilt. It was something she had experienced before and seen from her men. She had lost plenty of people in combat, some of whom were very close friends. Every time someone was killed, she wondered if there was something she could have done differently. Every soldier knew when their time was up in war. There was nothing anyone could do to change their fate. It was part of every soldier's reality, and something each one had to come to terms with. But the guilt she felt now was worse than anything she'd experienced. Shaking her head, Adrian thought to herself, "What am I, some damn 80s action hero? What could I have done that would have made a difference? I would be dead right here with you, wouldn't I, Tess?" Adrian was going mad, arguing with herself that she wanted to bolt out of her seat and scream to the heavens. She wanted someone to blame. Of course, there was the terrorist, but those sons of bitches were dead. She could blame the people who made the VX gas, or those that lost it. What good would that do? The list just went on. But each time the conclusion was the same. There was nothing to direct her anger at that would have brought her sister back. Adrian focused on the stage. The Statue of Liberty was behind it, looking out over New York City, as it had for 100+ years. Then, standing up to the podium following prayers from New York's Archbishop, President Lowe began his speech. "Those lives that were lost here on this horrific day are all heroes. Their names will live on in our hearts and our memories for all time. And as the country tries to heal, we must promise ourselves that their deaths were not in vain. That those responsible for this may never carry out such an attack ever again. This I vow to every American as I stand on this sacred ground. America will endure. We will not be intimidated." He prattled on for the next 15 minutes, speaking as if he was at a convention rally during an election year. He made promises that were impossible for any man, even the United States president, to keep. Of course, it was meant to fire up the American spirit of self-determination and self-reliance. It did not change the fact that over 4,000 people were dead, and likely there would be more in the future. Yes, gaps had to be purged in the system to make it harder for such groups to carry out an attack. But nothing he said was ever going to make the world the same again. Adrian rolled her eyes and thought to herself, "Damn turd. Tessa would hate to know you were up there speaking as if you knew her. Her death was meaningless, no matter how you try to spin it." As much as she argued about their political views, she respected her sister and her firm liberal beliefs. Worse still, President Lowe had a gift for making the sincerest words sound condescending. Most of Lowe's speech, which he rambled on for the past hour, felt like it was more about him covering his ass. He went on about how the attack was unthinkable, carried out by radical extremists who believed in anarchy. He forgot to mention the Crow movement was war veterans who pulled together for a common reason. They were determined to fight against a nation that had abandoned them when they needed help from their government. Lowe's administration had only made the problem worse. Hence, why they called for his resignation during the crisis. It did not condone what they'd done, but there was a reason, nevertheless. Tears first, patriotism second, revenge next, and the truth last, she thought bitterly. Adrian could not listen to Lo a moment longer. She stood from her seat and quickly left. Adrian found herself racing to the spot where her sister died. The central docking area had been cleaned up and mostly restored. Some evidence of the attack retained, such as bloodstains, seeped into the concrete or stained the grass. Tears fell under Adrian's eyes as she reached the spot where her sister had died. Her body had been kept on the ground for 4 days, leaving an impression. Falling to her knees, Adrian began to dig in the dirt frantically. A voice spoke from behind Adrian. "You're getting your dress uniform filthy, Captain." I don't care," Adrian said. She turned and saw who the speaker was. Her eyes widened at the realization as she quickly stood back to her feet and saluted. "General Spears!" "At ease, Captain." The general looked past Adrian and glanced down at the hole she just dug. Adrian noticed, feeling embarrassed as she brushed the dirt off her uniform. "It's a charm bracelet, sir." "Excuse me?" "My sister, Tessa. She wore one most of her life. She added little charms to it that marked important milestones in her life. They returned it to our family, but one of the charms is missing," Adrian said. "I'm sorry about your loss. I'm guessing you're tired of hearing that, aren't you, Captain?" "To be honest, I am, sir." "Good. I think it's about time you did something about your loss than mourning," Spears said. Adrian looked confused as she said, "What do you have in mind, sir?" "You've heard that the creation of the CERC has been approved and signed?" Spears asked. "Vaguely, sir." "Well, Dr. Juliet Wu will act as the director. As she builds the scientific side of things, I've been tasked with putting together the agency's military assets. I believe you would be a good fit, Captain." "Me, sir?" Adrian had not known the general long. She had served under his command during her last tour in Afghanistan a few years ago, and liked the man quite a bit. He was known for his quick thinking and strong determination to get the job done, but not at the risk of losing those who served under him. He was best described as a great compromiser who had a knack for making friends even out of his enemies. This quality helped him bring peace to a region of Afghanistan that had never known anything but war. "I can't think of anyone better. You served me well, and I know you are cool under pressure," Spears said. "I also feel, with the loss of your sister, joining to prevent such an attack as this one from ever happening again is an adequate motivation," he added. "Can we prevent this from happening again?" Spears put his hand on Adrian's shoulder. His eyes narrowed as his expression hardened. "You damn well better believe it." Adrian paused as she looked back at the podium. The crowd was clapping quietly as President Loeb finished his speech. He took his seat as the next speaker stepped up. "You can take some time to think it over if you like," Spears said. "No," Adrian said abruptly. "The last thing I need, sir, is more time doing nothing. I'm in." Spears smiled and said, "You'll do your sister proud." Adrian saluted Spears, who was about to turn and leave but stopped himself as he looked down. "Captain," he said, indicating to the dirt with his eyes. Adrian turned and saw, lying in the dirt, a small silver charm. She recognized it right away. Falling to the ground, Adrian scooped it up and held onto the object tightly as tears rolled down her cheeks.